If that stallion kicks you, don't blame me. Evelyn Prescott's voice cut across the round pen just as a steel gate slammed against its post. Luke Carter looked up from the fence he was repairing. Midnight exploded across the arena. The black stallion twisted away from the trainer, holding his lead rope, hooves hammering the packed earth as dust rose beneath the cold morning sun. Easy. The trainer tightened the rope. Midnight jerked harder. Hold him. A ranch hand stepped forward. Luke dropped his hammer. Give him space. Nobody listened. The trainer pulled again. Midnight's ears flattened. His neck arched, muscles tightening beneath a coat black enough to catch blue in the sunlight. Luke had seen that look before. Not anger. Fear with nowhere left to go. Stop pulling. The trainer turned. You talking to me? Luke stood beside the unfinished fence, work gloves tucked into his belt, sawdust clinging to his faded jacket. I'm talking about the horse. Evelyn stepped closer. At 36, the billionaire CEO looked as controlled in the dust as she probably did in a boardroom. Dark riding boots, tailored jacket, chestnut hair pulled neatly away from her face. Her blue-gray eyes settled on Luke. You're here to repair my barn. I know. Then repair it. Luke looked back at Midnight. The stallion struck the ground. Once. Twice. Leather creaked. A chain rattled against the gate. The air smelled of hay, cedar, and nervous sweat. Then the trainer tried to bring the saddle closer. Midnight surged sideways. The gate latch snapped loose. Metal flew open. Back. Ranch hand scattered. Evelyn froze for half a second before Cole Danner pulled her behind the fence. Luke didn't run. He stepped toward the open space. Evelyn's face changed. Stay back. Luke kept his eyes on Midnight. You're not a trainer, she snapped. His answer came quietly. Not anymore. Evelyn gave a sharp, disbelieving laugh. Then don't pretend. Midnight turned. His entire body aligned with Luke. The arena went still. Luke slowly removed his gloves. No rope. No whip. No raised hands. He angled his body partly away from the stallion, softened his shoulders, and lowered his gaze without ever losing awareness of where Midnight stood. Evelyn stared at him. What are you doing? Luke never looked away from the horse, giving him a choice. Midnight's ears came forward. Then the stallion took one step toward him. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and second chances, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Luke. 3 days earlier, Luke Carter had driven through the gates of Prescott Ridge Ranch in a pickup truck old enough to make the security guard look twice. Dad. Luke glanced toward the passenger seat. Mia Carter had her forehead pressed against the window. Yeah. Is that all one house? Luke followed her gaze. The Prescott estate rose beyond rolling Colorado pastureland, pale stone and dark timber framed by distant mountains. Miles of white fencing divided green fields where horses moved beneath the morning sun. That's the main house. Mia's eyes widened. There are more. Luke smiled. Apparently. His truck rattled over the gravel road. In the back sat everything they needed for 3 weeks. Toolboxes, work boots, 2 duffel bags, Mia's purple backpack, and enough uncertainty to fill whatever space remained. Luke needed the job. Winter had been slow. 2 construction projects had fallen through, and his savings were getting thinner than he liked. 3 weeks repairing an old barn and replacing damaged fencing wouldn't make him rich, but it would keep the bills paid and give him time to line up the next job. That was enough. A helicopter appeared above the western ridge. Mia pointed. Whoa. Luke pulled beside the barn as the aircraft descended toward a private landing area. Wind swept dust across the ranch. A woman stepped out. Chestnut hair secured neatly behind her head. Dark tailored jacket. Polished riding boots. Phone already against one ear. Evelyn Prescott moved as if even the wind had been scheduled. Yes, move the board call to 11. She crossed the yard without slowing. No, I don't care what Zurich wants. They can wait. Luke unloaded his toolbox. Their worlds passed within 20 feet of each other. Private helicopter. Old pickup. Executive phone call. Calloused hands. Evelyn ended the conversation and looked toward Cole Danner, her ranch manager. That him? Cole nodded. Luke Carter. Best carpenter I could get on short notice. Evelyn's eyes moved over Luke's truck. Then his jacket. Then Mia. Luke noticed. He had spent enough years working around wealthy clients to recognize the difference between being looked at and being measured. How long? Evelyn asked. 3 weeks, Cole said. Keep him on the north barn and west fencing. She started walking away, then stopped. And make sure he stays out of the horse operation. Luke heard every word. He lifted another toolbox from the truck. No reaction. No wounded pride. No need to prove anything. Mia waited until Evelyn was farther away. She seems nice. Luke looked at his daughter. Mia fought a grin. Was that sarcasm? You taught me. I absolutely did not. You definitely did. Luke laughed quietly. Then a sound came from beyond the barn. A hoof striking wood. Heavy. Sharp. Luke stopped. Another strike. Then a horse's deep, nervous breath. His expression changed before he could hide it. Mia noticed. You heard that. So did you. But you did the face. What face? Your horse face. Luke picked up his toolbox. I don't have a horse face. Mia followed him around the barn. Beyond the fence stood a black stallion. Midnight. Even from a distance, Luke could see the tension. Head high. Weight shifted backward. Eyes tracking every movement around him. Beautiful. Powerful. And afraid. Luke stopped walking. For years, he had avoided this feeling. The smell of hay. Leather warming in sunlight. The rhythmic sound of hooves against packed earth. Some memories didn't disappear. They simply learned to wait quietly. Mia looked up. Do you miss it? Luke kept his eyes on Midnight. Sometimes. Training horses? He nodded. Why did you stop? Luke finally looked at her. Because some things matter more. Mia understood who he meant. She slipped her small hand into his. Across the paddock, Midnight stared back at Luke. Neither moved. Then Evelyn's voice came from behind them. Mr. Carter. Luke turned. She pointed toward the barn. The fence is that way. Luke picked up his toolbox. Yes, ma'am. He walked away without argument. But Midnight followed him along the fence. Step for step. Evelyn noticed. So did Mia. Luke pretended not to. Because he had come to Prescott Ridge to repair a barn, collect a paycheck, and go home. He had not come back for horses. And he certainly had not come for the woman who owned them. But sometimes the life you leave behind does not chase you. It simply waits until you are close enough to hear it again. Is he always like that? Mia stood beside the west fence, watching Midnight pace the far edge of the paddock. Luke drove another screw into a cedar board. Like what? Like he's waiting for everybody to leave. Luke stopped for half a second. That's one way to put it. Midnight turned sharply when a ranch hand passed carrying a saddle. His head rose. His muscles tightened. Even after the man disappeared, the stallion remained alert. Mia frowned. Is he mean? Luke set down the drill. Scared and mean can look the same from far away. A woman's voice came from behind them. And from close up, he can put you in the hospital. Luke turned. Evelyn stood several yards away, holding a leather folder beneath one arm. I thought you were fixing my fence. I am. Then why are you studying my horse? Luke looked toward Midnight. I'm not. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. You've been watching him for 10 minutes. Watching isn't training. Something about the answer irritated her. Or perhaps it was the fact that Luke said it without apology. Evelyn walked toward the paddock. Midnight immediately lifted his head. Luke noticed the change. So did Mia. Evelyn stopped near the rail. He's been like this for 6 months. What happened 6 months ago? Her eyes shifted toward him. I didn't ask for an evaluation. No, ma'am. Luke picked up his drill again. That should have ended it. It didn't. I've hired 4 trainers, Evelyn said. Luke drove another screw into the fence. Good ones. The best money can buy. The drill stopped. Luke looked at her. That wasn't what I asked. Evelyn's jaw tightened. They were professionals. Midnight struck the ground with one hoof. Evelyn glanced toward him. My father raised him. Luke said nothing. He died last year. There was no softness in her voice, but grief rarely needed softness to reveal itself. Midnight was the last horse he bred personally. Luke looked at the stallion differently now. Not because the horse had changed. Because Evelyn had. Only slightly. But enough. So you need him to work, Luke said. I need him manageable. Same thing. To me, yes. Luke wiped sawdust from his hands. That might be part of the problem. Evelyn stared at him. Mia slowly took 2 steps backward. She knew that tone. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Luke nodded toward Midnight. Every time someone approaches him, he expects pressure. He's a stallion. He's still listening. To what? Everything. Wind moved through the cottonwoods. A loose chain tapped softly against a gate. Midnight's ears shifted toward the sound, then toward Evelyn, then back to Luke. Luke lowered his voice. His feet are ready to leave before anyone reaches him. Evelyn crossed her arms. So now you're a horse psychologist? No, then what are you? Luke picked up his drill. Today. He looked at the unfinished fence. A carpenter. Mia covered a smile. Evelyn did not. Good. Stay one. She turned and walked toward the main barn. Midnight tracked her movement until she disappeared. Then his head lowered slightly. Luke noticed. He wished he hadn't. Mia stepped closer. You were right. About what? He got calmer when she left. Luke gave her a warning look. Don't say that where she can't hear you. Why? Because I like getting paid. Mia laughed. Across the paddock, Midnight approached the fence. Not close. Just closer. Luke returned to work. Hammer. Wood. Wind. Hooves. He had known horses that fought because they had learned aggression. Others fought because pain had taught them fear. But Midnight didn't look like either. He looked like an animal who had been asked the same question too loudly, too many times. And everyone at Prescott Ridge kept responding to his fear with more control. Luke drove another screw into the cedar. Behind him, Midnight stopped pacing. Evelyn believed the stallion needed someone strong enough to master him. Luke was beginning to suspect the opposite. The horse did not need another person determined to win. He needed someone willing to stop fighting first. You're asking louder when he already can't hear you. The trainer turned sharply. Luke stood outside the round pen with a cedar board balanced across one shoulder. What did you say? Luke lowered the board beside the fence. Nothing. No. You said something. Evelyn looked over from the rail. Mr. Carter. Luke met her eyes. She was dressed for the ranch today. Dark jeans, polished boots, fitted jacket, but somehow still carried the controlled authority of a woman accustomed to entire boardrooms becoming quiet when she entered. I'm working, Luke said. Then work. Yes, ma'am. Inside the pen, Caleb Mercer tightened the lead rope. He had arrived from California that morning with expensive tack, impressive credentials, and the confidence of someone who had trained difficult horses for wealthy owners across 3 states. Midnight did not care. The stallion backed away. Caleb stepped forward. Midnight backed again. Come on, boy. Pressure. Another step. More pressure. Midnight's nostrils widened. His ears pinned briefly before flicking toward the gate. Luke saw it. Exit. The horse was looking for an exit. Caleb shortened the rope. Midnight jerked his head. Leather snapped tight. Easy. Luke's jaw tightened. Mia sat safely on a fence well outside the pen, watching beside Cole. Dad doesn't like this, she whispered. Cole glanced at Luke. No, how can you tell? He gets quieter. Inside the pen, Caleb reached for the saddle pad. Midnight spun. Dust exploded beneath his hooves. Hold him, Caleb shouted. A ranch hand moved toward the gate. Luke spoke before he could stop himself. Don't crowd him. Caleb glared through the fence. You want to do this? No, then stay out of it. Luke nodded. Fair enough. He picked up his hammer. Evelyn watched him. You seem very confident for a carpenter. Luke drove a nail into the fence post. I'm confident about fences. And horses, apparently. Another strike. I didn't say that. You keep correcting. The man I'm paying to train mine. Luke stopped hammering. He looked at Midnight. The stallion's sides were moving too quickly now. You paid him. Luke turned back to Evelyn. So listen to him. The answer irritated her more than an argument would have. You think he's wrong. Luke picked up another nail. I think your horse is scared. Evelyn's expression hardened. Midnight is not scared. The stallion slammed one hoof into the earth. Luke looked toward him. Okay. That single word carried no mockery, which somehow made it worse. Evelyn stepped closer. I have spent 6 months bringing professionals onto this ranch. Luke remained silent. Specialists. Trainers. Behavior experts. Still nothing. Do you know what that costs? Luke finally looked at her. No, more than most people make in a year. There it was. Money. Not cruelty. Not exactly. Just the language Evelyn trusted whenever uncertainty frightened her. Luke glanced toward Midnight. Money can buy better equipment. He looked at Caleb's polished tack. Better facilities. Then toward the immaculate barn. Better trainers. Evelyn waited. Luke's voice softened. It can't buy trust. The wind moved through the arena. Hay shifted somewhere inside the barn. A gate chain clicked softly against steel. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. You know nothing about what I've tried. You're right. Luke lifted his hammer again. So I'll get back to the fence. Inside the pen, Caleb increased pressure. Midnight surged backward. The rope snapped tight. A metal latch groaned. Luke heard it. His hammer stopped in midair. Cole. The ranch manager turned. Luke pointed. That gate. Cole saw it. Caleb, ease off. Too late. Midnight twisted. The latch jumped. Once. Twice. Metal screamed against metal. The gate burst open. Ranch hands scattered as Midnight wheeled into the larger enclosed arena, wild-eyed and breathing hard. Caleb grabbed for the loose rope. Don't. Luke's voice cracked across the arena. Everyone froze. Midnight turned toward him. Dust hung between them. Evelyn stared at Luke. He slowly removed his work gloves. Stay back, she ordered. Luke kept his eyes on the stallion. You're not a trainer. His answer was almost too quiet to hear. Not anymore. Evelyn gave a sharp laugh. Then don't pretend. Midnight stopped moving. His ears came forward. And for the first time all morning, the stallion was no longer watching the professional trainer. He was watching the carpenter. Nobody move. Luke's voice was low. It still stopped the entire arena. Midnight stood 30 feet away, black coat darkened with sweat, loose lead rope dragging through the dust. Caleb reached toward him. Luke lifted one hand. Don't. Caleb stared at him. He's loose. I can see that. I'm the trainer. Then give him room. Evelyn stepped toward the rail. Luke. He didn't look at her. Please. That word surprised her more than an order would have. Luke moved carefully into the open enclosure, leaving Midnight a clear path away from him. He did not walk straight at the stallion. He turned his body partly sideways, softened his shoulders, lowered the pressure of his gaze, and kept enough distance to read every change in Midnight's posture. No rope lifted. No hand reached. No command came. The stallion snorted. One hoof scraped the earth. Luke stepped back. Midnight's ears moved forward. Another step back. The stallion stopped pawing. Evelyn gripped the wooden rail. For 6 months, she had watched professionals approach Midnight with plans. Pressure. Technique. Authority. Luke offered something different. Space. Midnight took one cautious step. Mia covered her mouth. Dad. Cole gently touched her shoulder. Let him work. Luke heard them. He didn't turn. Midnight took another step. Caleb's expression changed. This proves nothing. Luke remained silent. The stallion's breathing slowed. Luke softened his body even further, turning partly away without ever placing himself blindly in the horse's path. Midnight watched, then moved. 1 step. 2. 3. The loose rope whispered across the dirt behind him. Luke did not reach. The stallion stopped close enough for Luke to feel warm breath against his shoulder. The ranch went silent. Midnight lowered his head, slowly, carefully, and rested his forehead against Luke's shoulder. Evelyn forgot to breathe. Caleb lowered his hands. Cole stared. Mia smiled as though she had been waiting for everyone else to discover something she already knew. Luke closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them. There you are, he whispered. No applause followed. No celebration. Luke didn't turn toward Evelyn with a victorious smile. He didn't look at Caleb. He simply remained still until Midnight lifted his head on his own. Only then did Luke raise one hand. Not touching. Waiting. Midnight closed the distance himself. His muzzle brushed Luke's palm. Evelyn's eyes filled with disbelief. He hasn't let anyone do that. Luke gently lowered his hand. He didn't let me. What? He chose to. The distinction landed harder than she expected. Evelyn looked at the stallion, then at the man she had called a carpenter, as though the word meant he could be nothing else. What did you do? Luke glanced toward Midnight. Stopped asking. That's it. No, Evelyn waited. Luke's voice softened. I listened. Midnight remained beside him. Not conquered. Not broken. Not magically transformed. Still powerful. Still watchful. But no longer trying to escape. Evelyn stepped closer to the fence. What was he asking for? Luke looked at her. For the first time since arriving at Prescott Ridge, there was no mockery in her face. Only curiosity. Maybe humility. He wasn't asking for a stronger hand. Luke looked back at Midnight. He was asking for a quieter one. The wind moved gently through the cottonwoods. Evelyn said nothing. Because the stallion she had spent 6 months trying to control had just walked willingly toward the man she had spent 3 days refusing to respect. And somewhere beneath that silence, an uncomfortable question began to form. If Luke Carter understood Midnight this well, what else had she been too proud to see? You were a horse trainer. Luke looked up from the broken gate latched the following morning. Evelyn stood on the other side of the fence, holding her phone. It wasn't a question. Luke returned to tightening the bolt. Once. Yes. Evelyn stared at him. Behind Luke, Midnight grazed quietly beneath the cottonwoods, still watchful but no longer pacing the fence. I made one phone call. Luke gave the wrench. Another turn. I figured. Cole knew your name sounded familiar. That happens. No, Luke. It doesn't. He finally looked at her. You worked with horses for nearly 12 years. Luke said nothing. You trained difficult ranch horses in Wyoming, Montana, Colorado. You worked with animals other trainers had already given up on. I worked with horses. You were respected. Luke shrugged. Respect doesn't make somebody right. Evelyn lowered her phone. Why didn't you tell me? You hired me to fix a barn. That's your answer? It's the truth. A hammer struck wood somewhere inside the stable. Wind carried the smell of cedar, leather, and dry grass across the yard. Evelyn looked toward Midnight. She had replayed yesterday's moment all night. Not because Luke had controlled the stallion. Because he hadn't. You let me treat you like you knew nothing. Luke wiped his hands on a rag. You didn't ask. I mocked you. You did. And that doesn't bother you? Luke considered it. It told me more about you than it did about me. The words landed quietly. Evelyn looked away. For once, there was no executive answer waiting behind her teeth. Then Mia came running from the barn carrying a small paper bag. Dad, Cole gave me an apple for Midnight. Luke smiled. Did Cole say you could feed him? Mia stopped. No, then ask first. She sighed dramatically and ran back. Evelyn watched her go. Something softened in her face. You gave all that up for her. Luke's smile faded into something gentler. I didn't give it up. You stopped training. I chose something else. His eyes followed Mia. My wife died when Mia was 4. Evelyn went still. I'm sorry. Luke nodded once. Training horses kept me on the road. Clinics. Ranches contracts. Sometimes weeks away. He looked down at the wrench in his hand. After Sarah died, Mia didn't need a father who was good with horses. His voice lowered. She needed one who came home. Evelyn said nothing. So I started taking carpentry jobs. Repairs. Anything local. And the horses? Luke looked toward Midnight. Some things you miss quietly. The stallion lifted his head as though hearing him. Evelyn followed Luke's gaze. 4 years, she had measured sacrifice in numbers. Lost deals. Missed acquisitions. Millions left on negotiating tables. Luke had walked away from something he loved because a little girl needed to know which chair her father would occupy at dinner. There was no press release for that. No award. No applause. Just responsibility. You could train again, Evelyn said. Luke smiled faintly. I could. I could pay you more than carpentry ever will. There it was again. Money. Evelyn heard it this time. She almost winced. Luke didn't. I'm sure you could. Then why not? He looked directly at her. Because more money isn't automatically a better life. Evelyn's expression changed. Most people around her wanted access. Capital. Position. A larger number. Luke Carter seemed almost suspicious of anything that asked him to trade time for status. Midnight walked toward the fence. Luke remained still. The stallion stopped beside him. Evelyn watched the two of them. Yesterday, she had thought the remarkable thing was that Luke could make a difficult stallion trust him. Now she understood something more unsettling. Luke had never needed Midnight to prove who he was. He hadn't needed Evelyn to know either. And for the first time since he arrived at Prescott Ridge, she was no longer looking at hired labor. She was looking at a father who had once possessed a gift, walked away from recognition without bitterness, and chosen his daughter instead. The horse had seen the quiet in him first. Evelyn was only beginning to catch up. The problem isn't Midnight. Evelyn stopped at the round pen gate several days later. Luke stood inside with the black stallion 20 feet behind him. What did you say? Luke slowly coiled the training rope in his hands. You heard me. Evelyn's blue-gray eyes narrowed. For the past week, she had watched Luke work with Midnight without force. No chasing. No shouting. No battle over who controlled whom. And somehow, the stallion had begun to change. He still carried power in every movement. Still watched strangers carefully. Still refused anyone who approached too quickly. But around Luke, he listened. Around Mia, he softened. Around Evelyn, he tightened. You think I'm the problem? Luke rested the rope on the fence. I think you walk into this pen expecting a fight. Because he gives me one. Maybe. Luke looked toward Midnight. Or maybe he feels you preparing for one. Evelyn gave a short laugh. So now you understand me, because a horse follows you? No, then stop acting like you do. Luke remained quiet. That silence irritated her more than an argument. I build a company from 12 employees to 12,000, Evelyn said. I negotiate acquisitions worth more than this entire county. I know how to handle pressure. I believe you. Then what exactly are you trying to tell me? Luke met her eyes. That pressure isn't always something you handle. A beat. Sometimes it's something you create. Evelyn's face hardened. Midnight shifted behind him. A hoof pressed softly into the dirt. Luke lowered his voice. You enter with the rope already tight. He needs control. You need control. The words landed harder. Evelyn stepped closer. You're crossing a line. Probably. You work for me. On the barn. I could end that contract today. Luke nodded. You could. No fear. No challenge. Just fact. Evelyn hated how little power the threat seemed to have over him. You think because Midnight chose you, you've earned the right to judge me? Luke shook his head. No, then what? He looked at the stallion. I think he understands you before you do. Silence. The wind pushed softly through the cottonwoods. Leather straps tapped against a nearby post. Midnight breathed behind Luke, low and steady. Evelyn's jaw tightened. You know nothing about me. I know you loved your father. Her expression changed. Luke continued carefully. I know Midnight was his last horse. Stop. And I know every time that horse pulls away, you look at him like you're losing your father again. Stop. Luke did. Immediately. No final word. No sermon. He simply stepped back. Evelyn stared at him. For 1 second, anger disappeared. Something more vulnerable took its place. Then the wall came back. My father built this ranch. Luke said nothing. He taught me that if you lose control, someone else takes it. That may work in business. It worked for him. Did it? Evelyn's eyes flashed. You don't get to talk about my father. You're right. Luke picked up the rope. That answer unsettled her. She had expected resistance. Instead, he gave her the boundary she demanded. Evelyn looked toward Midnight. The stallion had moved farther away. Not running, just creating distance. She noticed. Luke noticed her noticing. He does that every time. Evelyn turned sharply. Every time what? Luke hesitated. When you stop being afraid and start pretending you're angry. Her face went still. That was the line. She opened the gate. You're done. Luke didn't move. Excuse me. With Midnight. Evelyn's voice trembled despite her effort to control it. You finish the barn. You stay away from my horse. Luke nodded once. All right. No pleading. No reminder that Midnight trusted him. No attempt to win. He walked past her and closed the gate gently behind him. Evelyn remained alone beside the pen. Midnight stood at the far end. For the first time, she felt the full distance between them. 20 yards. 6 months. One dead father. And a lifetime spent believing that holding tighter was the same thing as keeping something safe. Luke walked toward the barn. Mia saw his face and didn't ask what happened. She simply slipped her hand into his. Behind them, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the western ridge. Evelyn looked toward the mountains. Dark clouds were gathering. Then Midnight lifted his head. The wind changed. And before the night was over, Evelyn Prescott would have to decide whether control was really the same thing as courage. Don't chase him. Rain swept across the paddock in silver sheets. Evelyn stood near the open gate, safely inside the fenced entry area while Luke remained only a few steps away, positioned beside the gate where he could intervene if the situation changed. Midnight paced farther inside the paddock. Alert. Restless. But not charging. Not rearing. The storm had made him unwilling to approach the barn, and a fallen branch had damaged part of the outer fence. They needed him under shelter before the weather worsened. What am I supposed to do? Evelyn asked. Luke kept his voice low. Stop asking him to run from you. Thunder rolled across the ridge. Midnight lifted his head. Rain darkened his black coat. Wind drove through the cottonwoods. 3 ranch hands waited at a distance, giving the stallion room. Evelyn held a rope loosely. Should I use this? No, then why am I holding it? Luke looked at her. Good question. Evelyn stared at the rope, then slowly placed it on the ground. Midnight stopped pacing. Not completely, but enough. Rain struck the barn roof in hard metallic waves. A gate chain rattled. Lightning flashed far beyond the hills. Evelyn swallowed. He's still watching me. He should. What does that mean? It means he hasn't chosen to leave. She looked toward Luke. I don't know how to do this. For the first time since he had met her, there was no command in her voice. No CEO. No billionaire. No woman trying to win. Just Evelyn. Luke softened. Good. Her expression sharpened. Good. Now you can stop pretending you do. Midnight took a nervous step sideways. Evelyn's hands tightened. Luke saw it. Breathe. I am breathing. Not like you believe it. She almost laughed. Almost. Then another thunderclap rolled overhead. Midnight raised his head. Evelyn instinctively leaned forward. Don't chase him. I'm trying to get him inside. I know. Then help me. Luke's voice remained quiet. I am. You could do this faster. Probably. Then why aren't you? Luke held her gaze. Because tomorrow he'd still trust me. A beat. And you'd still be afraid of him. The words settled between them. Evelyn looked at Midnight. Then at the rope lying in the wet grass. What do I do? For 30 seconds? Luke nodded toward the stallion. Nothing. That can't be the answer. For 30 seconds, it is. So Evelyn stood still. Rain loosened her chestnut hair around her face. Her polished boots sank slightly into mud. Her breathing slowed. Midnight watched. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then the stallion lowered his head. Evelyn's eyes filled. He moved. Don't make it bigger than it is. She nodded. Midnight stepped closer. Not much. One step. Then another. Evelyn began crying before she realized it. Quietly. No. Sobbing. No collapse. Just tears mixed with rain. My father used to bring him to me. Luke said nothing. He'd say Midnight would be mine someday. Another step. When Dad died, I thought if I could control this horse, her voice broke. I could keep one thing from leaving. Luke remained near the gate. Close enough to protect. Far enough not to steal the moment. Midnight stopped several feet away. Evelyn lifted her hand. Wait, Luke said gently. She froze. Let him finish. Midnight breathed, then closed some of the distance himself. His muzzle hovered near Evelyn's open palm. He didn't press into her. He didn't become tame. He simply stayed. Evelyn closed her eyes. For once, she asked for nothing more. No saddle. No obedience. No proof. Only presence. Something inside her finally loosened. She had spent years believing strength meant holding tighter. Companies. People. Memories. A father she could not bring back. But standing in the rain beside a horse she could never own emotionally simply because she owned him legally, Evelyn understood what Luke had been trying to show her. Trust was not surrender. It was permission. Midnight eventually turned toward the barn. Evelyn walked several careful steps behind and to the side, never crowding him. Luke opened the barn gate. Midnight entered on his own. Their eyes met. I told you to stay away from him, Evelyn whispered. Luke smiled faintly. I remember. I was wrong. Thunder faded toward the eastern hills. Luke stepped aside as Midnight settled beneath the shelter. You learned. Evelyn looked at him. There was mud on her clothes, rain in her hair, and no armor left in her expression. For the first time, Luke did not see the billionaire who owned Prescott Ridge. He saw a grieving daughter who had finally stopped fighting what she was afraid to lose. And for the first time, Midnight had walked into the barn beside her because he wanted to. He chose you before I did. Luke turned toward Evelyn. 6 months had passed. The evening sun rested low over Prescott Ridge, turning the pasture grass gold and painting long shadows across the restored barn. Midnight stood beyond the fence. Not tied. Not saddled. Not waiting for a command. Just watching. Luke smiled faintly. You sure you chose me? Evelyn looked at him. I'm still learning not to control everything. That sounds dangerous. For a CEO? For everyone around you. She laughed. The north barn was finished. The broken fences had been replaced. Luke's original 3-week contract had ended long ago. At first, Evelyn had offered him a part-time training contract built around Mia's school schedule. Luke accepted on one condition. No travel that kept him away from his daughter for weeks at a time. No career that required him to become the father he had already decided not to be. Evelyn agreed. Then something happened neither of them needed to manufacture. Word spread. A neighboring ranch asked Luke to work with a frightened gelding. Then another owner called. Then another. Results became referrals. Referrals became steady work. And over the following months, Prescott Ridge gradually developed a small humane training program around Luke's methods. Evelyn had opened a door. Luke had built what came through it. From the barn came Mia's voice. Dad. His 9-year-old daughter hurried toward them carrying an apple in both hands. I asked Cole this time. Luke raised an eyebrow. And he said yes. Then I'm impressed. Mia walked carefully toward the fence. Midnight saw her. His ears moved forward. She stopped several feet away and waited. The stallion approached on his own. Evelyn watched him take the apple gently from Mia's palm. He likes her more than me. Luke folded his arms. She brings snacks. So that's the secret? Apparently money could have bought trust after all. Evelyn elbowed him lightly. Luke laughed. The sound surprised him sometimes. For years after Sarah died, laughter had felt almost disrespectful, as though healing meant forgetting. Mia had taught him otherwise. And lately, Evelyn had too. Mia looked between them. Can I ask something? That has never stopped you before, Luke said. She ignored him. Did Midnight pick Dad because he knew Dad was good? Evelyn looked at Luke. Maybe. Luke shook his head. Or maybe he knew I wasn't asking for anything. Mia considered that with the seriousness. Only children could give simple truths. Then she ran toward the barn. Cole, I need another apple. Luke called after her. 1, 2, 1. Her laughter disappeared inside. Evelyn leaned against the fence. Midnight remained nearby. He was still a stallion. Still powerful. Still capable of deciding he wanted distance. Luke had never tried to turn him into something smaller just to make humans comfortable. Evelyn understood that now. He lets me stand beside him, she said. I noticed. Some days are enough. She looked toward Luke. You really believe that? I had to. The answer carried more than horses. Evelyn heard it. She looked toward Mia's backpack hanging beside the barn door. Then toward the small photograph Luke kept inside his truck, Sarah holding Mia as a baby. Second chances did not erase first loves. They did not replace grief. They simply gave life permission to continue beside it. Evelyn lowered her voice. I was awful to you when you arrived. You were efficient. She laughed. That is an extremely generous word. I'm working on grace. And how's that going? Luke considered it. Ask me tomorrow. Silence settled comfortably between them. Then Evelyn said, he chose you before I did. Luke turned. This time, she didn't look away. There was no billionaire CEO in her expression. No ranch owner. No woman accustomed to making every decision first. Only Evelyn. Luke extended his hand. He didn't take hers. Didn't pull her closer. He simply offered it. Evelyn looked down. 6 months earlier, she would have controlled even this moment. Now she smiled and placed her hand into his. Behind them, Midnight lowered his head into the evening grass. No applause. No crowd. No grand declaration. Just a single father who had once been dismissed as hired labor. A woman who had mistaken control for strength. A little girl laughing inside an old barn. And a stallion who had understood something before any of them. Luke had never conquered Midnight. Evelyn had never needed to own his trust. And neither of them had healed by forcing life to become what they wanted. They had learned something quieter. Respect cannot be demanded. Trust cannot be purchased. Love cannot be controlled. It can only be given room to come closer. The sun disappeared behind the mountains. Evelyn's fingers tightened gently around Luke's. Midnight remained beside them. And this time, nobody asked him to stay.